Hey, welcome to another episode. I'm Brian Roisenthal, your host, and today I'm super excited to interview Adam Pearce. He's the founder and CEO of Blend Commerce, a Shopify CRO agency. But that's not all. He's also the founder of the eCom Collab Club, an online community and in-person events for e-commerce brands, agencies, and tech partners, and I believe even more as well. Hey, Adam, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Brian, good to see you, mate. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, could you please tell the audience, even more for those who don't know you, more about you, your background, and your business?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I, like a lot of people, fell into e-commerce completely by accident about 10 years ago. I had graduated from college, went to become a high-flying management consultant, failed, tried to be a teacher, failed, tried to set educational software, did okay. And basically my brother-in-law at the time was learning to be a developer. Shopify came along and he was like, look, you do marketing, let's go and sell websites. And two fat guys sat around a kitchen table and created an agency. So that's kind of how I got here. I don't know how I'm still here doing what I do, but I'm getting away with it for the time being, which is great. I guess, look, sort of going a little bit further there. I mean, like you said there, I run Blend Commerce, which is a Shopify CRO agency. We haven't always been a CRO agency. We made that switch probably about 3 years ago, and I think we'll probably go into that later. And also, like you said as well there, Brian, I love hosting e-commerce events that aren't shit. Am I allowed to swear on this, by the way, or not? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, cool. So yeah, basically, I like running really good e-commerce events for brands, for agencies, for tech providers, but I hate that kind of like warm wine, chicken in white wine sauce, photocopier salesman type thing. That is not what I like in events. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. And I would love your take on the following. What do you think that's going on in the commerce space in 2024? What are brands struggling with the most?
I think two main things really is one, it is getting over obsession that Facebook ads are still the only way to market your business, and that ROAS is going to magically go back to being 10, 12, 15. Most people are sitting on 1.5 to 2.5 at the moment. So I think getting over that perception, that obsession that I think a lot of brands have, they need to get over that first of all. But I think the other challenge as well is a lot of e-commerce brands have matured, particularly the past couple of years. And I think a lot of brands are at a crossroads now where they're kind of saying, look, in order to continue to grow at the rate that we've grown at, do we need to work with an agency or do we need to hire external people? And I think a lot of brands who started from kind of, founder-led, look, it was literally one guy selling some shoes. They're now doing $15 million a year. Where do they go? And I think there is an abundance of agencies. There are a lot of freelancers and a lot of people who have experience of e-commerce. So deciding where to spend your money and how to get the most from it is a challenge, and one obviously that directly affects me and you, Brian, as people who run agencies. So that for me is the two big things at the moment.
Yeah. And one thing we have discussed previously with some brand founders is that many brands struggle with profitability. It's not, post-COVID anymore, like 2020 or 2021, let's say. Things are tougher and brands are realizing that profitability is a thing and that they need to do something about it. Many of them were focused on the top line revenue and not on the bottom line. And now they say, what can we do, to improve things besides decreasing costs? Decreasing costs is fine, but there's a limit to how much you can do that, right? So how can CRO help them with that? But before you answer that, it's two questions in one. Could you please clarify what CRO is? Because I think there's a misconception. I don't know what you think about it, but I think there's a misconception on the term.
Yeah, and it massively impacts my day-to-day, Brian, because look, the way I describe it as a CRO is it's kind of this kind of broken telephone problem, in that about sort of 20 years ago, what CRO was looking at lots of different data points, plotting them out and saying, from the perspective when someone goes to a website, here is where they exit, here is where they enter, here's where they're dropping off. All this different data that will get basically put together, and then a picture would then be formed. And realistically, it was quite mathematical. Now, what happened is that probably about 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of people started saying CRO, conversion rate optimization. But what they did is they focused in completely on that word conversion. And what happened is that people started to think the conversion optimization simply meant get your conversion rate from 2.5% to 3%, and everything that you should do should be about conversion rate. Now, there's two issues with that. One is that, as a lot of us will know, work in e-commerce, conversion rate isn't always going to be the main driver to increasing your revenue and also your profitability. Another metric that we do use a lot in our agency is lifetime value. So a lot of the time, what I see is that your average order value tends to be a bigger driver of the actual profitability of your business. Because ultimately, if you pay for someone to come to the site with an ad and they buy $50 or $70 worth of stuff, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out you're going to make more profit with the $70. So AOV is a big factor. So for me, what CRO is saying from the perspective of as soon as someone lands on your site to the point at which they buy their very, very last product from you before they ideally departed, what can you do to get them A, to buy again, B, to spend as much money as possible, and then to use that data to get more customers coming back? That is what I'm going out there to brands and saying that we do as an agency. And ultimately, that's what they're paying for. So for me, that's what CRO is.
Why do you think they need CRO specifically in 2024? I mean, I think they, of course, they always need CRO, or I would love your take on that, but why now?
I think there's two main reasons. Look, we can talk about Meta and Facebook ads. Everyone's bored of that conversation. Okay, Facebook ads don't work as well as they used to, but the knock-on effect of that is that when you do then pay for traffic to come to site, what you need is as many opportunities to hook that person in to either buy then or to then come back in the future. So you've got less chances than you used to. If you think about it as kind of a moving target, than you had when it was, sort of 10 ROAS and now it's kind of 2. That's the first reason. The second thing is that what I definitely observed and what brands tell me is that in that COVID period, what happened is everyone who was not an online shopper became an online shopper. And those people that were online shopping started spending 5 to 6 times more. Now, unfortunately, what happened because of the back of that, a lot of consumers started to become very good at understanding when a company is genuine, when a company provides good service, bad service, has good products, poor products. So the level, I think, of understanding and also skepticism of customers has gone through the roof. So when it comes to customers being on site, you need to make sure that that experience is better because they are much better than they used to be at understanding whether what you're selling is complete BS or actually they trust you as a brand. They see reviews, they see product videos, they see well-written descriptions, they see a well-organized site, they see that it's an accessible site. All of these factors are now literally on a mobile scrolling through, right? I'm verifying this company. Yes, this looks legitimate because I know there are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other options are out there. So for me, that's what I think that the dial has changed now and why so many more brands are not just looking at, agencies, oh, it's the IT guys, it's the website guys. They're looking at it as better. So look, we need someone help to make sure that when people come to site, people are buying the stuff we want them to buy. And ultimately, as a brand, you need to do that internally, or if you can't do it internally, get some outside support.
And I think there are many things that brands can get support, outside and have contractors. But I do think, and I would love your take on these two, that many of them, or many successful brands, what I see, from those I interview here in the show, those I work with, they do have, people in-house or something else that I'm going to address in a minute to create content. It's not about the one photo shoot per month or a quarterly photo shoot, to create the content, some statics or some phony,
Mm.
images or videos. It's about the genuine stuff. It's about, one brand, 8-figure brand, let's say, they have hired a cash paying customer after they found out that the guy was buying their products and was recording a lot of content for them. So that relationship evolved, and they moved the guy and his family to that state, and the guy is now a full-time creator for them. Some other brands I talk to, they have their whole team, and sometimes their whole team is 6 people, but they have the
Mm.
admin person, the fulfillment, the CX person recording content, all of them. Sometimes it's the founders. So
Yeah.
what do you think about content creation these days? Can brands get away with outsourcing it these days, and how? Or do you think it's really an in-house thing?
For me, I actually think it's down to two factors. One is, look, ultimately, in terms of in-house skill, if you have the ability to, number one, be able to operate a camera or be able to operate a phone. I know that sounds a bit silly, but some people just don't. Okay. I see on LinkedIn all the time. People do videos and like half of their face is missing off it. It just looks a bit shit. Yeah, that's let's face it, something like that. But the other thing for me is the main blocker in my mind to people doing content internally is actually whether they are willing to actually show everything. That is a biggest blocker because a lot of people won't. You see it on LinkedIn all the time, Brian. People put posts on there that I'm amazing, I'm this, I'm that, the other. They won't show their true selves. And I think the other thing as well with that, with that content creation piece is, are you creative enough to use something to create that emotional connection that you then can go out and use that as a marketing ploy? Now, an example I'll give here is a brand called Midday Squares. People on LinkedIn will probably know Jake Carls and Nick Sattarelli, who are part of that company. They literally record everything, and they have pretty much from day one. Now, I freaking love Jake Carls because, for example, what he does is there's a guy, one of the stores that they sell at, he goes down there and basically he always talks about making friends first and doing business later. He basically does these like stupid dances with this guy who like packs the shelves in the store, and people freaking love it. But a lot of brand founders, wouldn't even think to do that because, oh, this shit's stupid, why would I do that? But if you look at the engagement that he gets on those posts and that they get as a brand, people love it because people now want to see behind the curtain. And I think if you can do that internally, great. But I would say the vast majority of people can't. So having someone with that creative eye and that ability to say, look, we can go and record you in the car on the way to a meeting, but what we're going to do is we're going to throw in some random questions in between. We're going to cut and splice it. We're going to do a pre-meeting, post-meeting, see how you're feeling afterwards, film you again in 3 months' time when the deal goes through or doesn't go through, whichever way. So that kind of like thought process and the emotions you're going to generate off it, that is a skill to have. And, I think, look, it's something that I try and work on, but I have to have people in my company, my content creation team, who can help us actually put that through into fruition. So, I know I've sort of given a long answer here, Brian, but I think it's about those two things. It's willingness to share, it's a technical skill, and probably like the third thing is like, have you got that vision to be able to do it yourself and turn it into something that's going to benefit you rather than just being, BS noise and, nothing that really is going to come and give you anything that you want.
I definitely love that guy. He's amazing, as he said, and it's definitely not easy to pull something like that off. It's not. I suck at camera. I acknowledge that. I want to force myself to record these short form videos, this conversation, on camera, and I can tell I'm not an entertaining guy as this guy. So we like not everyone needs to be funny, fun. You can be. I mean, you need to be yourself, right? The problem is when you try to
Correct.
be somebody else, right? But still, you might feel uncomfortable. That's why it's important, or I think, based on the brands I talk to, if it's not you as founder or CEO, let's have somebody else that represents
Mm,
the company the way you want it. But I think that and again, it's my personal take, it's that what doesn't work as much as it used to is, you know, doing a one-off or once a quarter, let's say photo shoot or recording something like, because that's typically not genuine. It's not something spontaneous. It's something that it's the clean stuff that probably nobody wants to see anymore.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think, people like that raw, unfiltered. People always talk now about ads, don't they, about making ugly ads. And I think, it's the same with content. You're kind of making ugly content in that, look, it's not highly polished, it's not highly finished. And I think, going back to that point you mentioned there as well, you know, I actually think that you need people with different types of personas. Now, in my company, look, I'm the stupid one. I say weird shit, like, fine. Some people like that. Some people freaking hate me. I know they do. Other people more resonate more with business partner Pete, because Peter is like, yeah, he has a laugh and a joke, but he's a little bit more serious than me. He's a little bit more direct than me. He's a bit more fiery than me. And I see that at the events that we do together when we host them, is that people resonate with those kind of two different personas. And the personas are blown up on stage because, like, we're adrenaline pumping and we're trying to create an atmosphere. But I think that's the same thing in brands, is that you, like you say, you don't need to be this like, oh, I'm going to go and do a funny video like Jake Carl's. But if you've got your own brand of, this is authentic me, this is what I do, perfect. Because you can maintain that. If you can truly get to the point you're like, this is me, you can knock that shit out, every day, every day, every day. And people come back for that same flavor of you. If you're trying to be different people each day, people are like, what the hell is going on with this guy? Who is he? What is he about? Is he the funny guy? Is he the serious guy? Like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't care about his brand. And I think that's the danger that you play if you try and sort of play into that sort of, character that isn't you. It's hard to maintain.
So I don't know if we are around the corner, regarding Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but it's in everyone's radar these days. We
Mm.
are mid-August, you know, recording this episode that is going to air in late August. So it's going to be, a few months before that, let's say, huge sales or commercial action starts.
Mm.
But before that, brands need to get ready. Many brands have already started. Many brands are, planning 2025, or so they say, right? But many didn't. And, we are talking about CRO and they are thinking, okay, all good, but what the heck should I do to get my website ready before this craziness? So I know it's a long question with a long answer, but what are like the top 3 or 5 things you could tell these people to do?
Well, if you're listening to this and it's still August, congratulations, you're okay. If you're mid-September, oh, well, not so much. So the way I would lay it out is this: is that ultimately, when it comes to preparing for Black Friday, and the key thing is here, is Black Friday actually profitable for your business? If it's not, forget it, and then do a promotion at the time of the year or post at the time of the year. We'll come back to that. But when it comes to Black Friday, if you're in the start of September, you really need to be using September, at least 2 or 3 weeks of it, to be doing analysis of what's happening on site. For me, I'll be plugging in Microsoft Clarity or be plugging in Hotjar, be getting those heat maps and work out, look, where are people entering, exiting? Where are people stumbling? That's the first play that you need to have. You need to, in order of your email marketing, number one, find out, look, are the flows that you're sending out automated working well? Campaigns resonating with people? And damn importantly, make sure your segments are correct. If you haven't got segments and you haven't tested campaigns with those segments, get them prepared, get them ready, because you're going to need them. So that's going to take you pretty much to the end of September. October for me is implementation time. All of those things that you've kind of prioritized that you've seen, well, actually, yeah, this product page, we're seeing people that exiting on 50% scroll. Okay, we think it might be this issue. A/B test it a couple of weeks. So you've got to make those small, low-hanging fruit changes in literally those first couple of weeks in September, test it, and then really you want to be locking that site down realistically by the middle of November. You don't want to be continuing to work, because what you need to make sure is you've got at least a few weeks to make sure that any new functionality you put on site is working in reality and beyond the A/B test that you've done. And secondly, then, if you have set up any new email flows, making sure that those are then correct and ready. I think, if you are listening to this and it is kind of, the start of October, I'm not saying you're screwed, but what I am saying is don't go out there and spend a shit ton of money on an audit because you're not going to have time to implement it. What my honest opinion would be, if you were sitting there in October, the start of October, put Hotjar on, if you've got traffic of over sort of, maybe 20, 25,000 visitors, you should be okay. You should be getting to get some results back. Infer what you can from it. Make sure you got your segment set up and go for it. But I think, for me, that is kind of my advice. And it's why, as an agency, we sort of stopped doing audits for people in terms of CRO audits, realistically, end of August, start of September, because we know then it's kind of not fair to then say, oh yeah, there's all these great things you can do, but by the way, they're going to hit your deadline for Black Friday. So we put a pause on those and then come back afterwards and then sort of help them pick up the pieces beyond it. But Brian, you probably see my posts on LinkedIn as well. And I think people are still now, and I had a call this week, we're here in the middle of August, asking if we get a redesign ready for Black Friday. And, no. And a lot of the time, people don't need redesigns. Yeah, I would say that a good 95, 96% of brands that I talk to who think they need a redesign, we turn around and tell them not to bother. Because, a lot of the time, especially when it's brands that are doing sort of in excess of about $3 million, architecturally and from a speed point of view, from a consistency point of view, they're pretty much there. There aren't many sites unless they, you've got a site that's been there for 10 years and not been updated in 10 years, which is very, very infrequent now. So making the smaller iterative changes, A, it's going to be cheaper, B, you're going to see much better ROI.
Do you think about landing pages for Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Again, I know it depends on many cases, but there are people or there are brands that do site-wide discount or promotion, and there are brands that do some specific things. So for those doing site-wide discounts, do you think that a landing page is typically, let's say, in a generic scenario, a good option, or when do you think that it makes sense exploring creating one or multiple ones?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, especially if you are, kind of pulling out sort of a hero Black Friday offer, I would definitely be going for that landing page, because ultimately, if the objective of Black Friday is to hook new customers in with that lower price product to then get them in as a repeat customer, I think great, because what you can do then is you can make sure that with that landing page on purchase, anyone checking out with that product then gets a particular welcome flow off the back of it with an email marketing, give them a really good experience, really good deal to start off with, and then go from there. What I would say though is that what you can do alongside that though is you can pre-test that. So I will be building that landing page and getting that ready without obviously any discount on there. And if you are using paid media to use that to then drive traffic too, I will be making sure you test it out, because what you're going to infer from that is you're going to see actually from your heat mapping where people are actually viewing content on that, what they're actually interacting with it. And it might give you an ability to then change that up rather than going, look, actually, you know what, guys, bang, Black Friday weekend, off it goes. Let's see what happens. So just make sure that you test it before without any discounting.
Okay, makes sense. So I wanted to ask you something. I know that brands, I mean, two brands, probably we are the enemy. Agencies, they've been burned so many times with agencies that probably they are saying, please help me out and tell me what should I ask an agency when hiring them, because I don't want to be burnt again. People we do audits for, companies we do audits for, typically we would be, let's say, the second, the third, or fourth even agency in the last few years. Sometimes it's a red flag, but sometimes to us, depending on the client, we know that, you know, there were many brands, many companies started, after COVID, but the same happened with agencies. Many people
Mm,
started an agency, and I won't mention the name out of respect, but someone I know who started an agency like a few months ago got the first client. I was pretty happy. And then the guy came asking for help, saying, you know, I don't have any experience with this. I got this client. What should I do? And he's like, what are you doing? Like, it's
mm,
fine. We all get our first client at some point, but
yeah.
one thing is having the experience, even if it's the first client, because we did that working for somebody else in the past, and a different one is, not having experience. So I think that that's one of the reasons many companies have been burned. So what could you tell these, brands looking for a CRO agency in this
Mm.
at this time of the year, say?
I mean, I think the first thing is I would be asking questions to address the particular problems that you've had before. Now, from my perspective, the things that have happened before a lot of the time with the clients that we speak to, brand new, who are talking to us, is number one is account managers and project managers are changing all the time in the agency we work with. It really pissed us off because it meant that we had to keep explaining how the company worked, what the brand was about, what the product was about. So what I would be asking, and what I tell people about is, look, when it comes to you as an agency, what is your retention rate like? Which account manager will I be working with? Which project manager will I be working with? How many years have they had an experience? Who are the clients they work with? Because from that, you'll be able to know, okay, look, if my main point of contact is going to be an account manager and project manager, I want to know that, look, how long have they been in the company and what experience do they got? Your relationship and your experience with the agency is going to be very, very much determined by that person. And I know the experience, with clients at Blend has been, made and sometimes broken by the delivery that our account manager and project manager has had over the years. I think the other thing as well that's really important to ask is to make sure, first of all, that you as a brand share your number with that agency. And what I mean by that is that, for example, today I had a brand I spoke to, and they said very clearly, we're doing £120,000 a month right now. We want to get to £150,000 by December. Perfect. Because then that goal is out in the ether. When a brand comes along and says, well, Adam, we just want to, make sure that we improve and conversion rate goes up. What the hell does that mean? Your improvement might be, a 50% increase in conversion rate. My improvement might be a 10% increase in conversion rate. What is that? So number one, share that. And then basically what I would be saying as a brand is, this is our goal. Can you tell me 2 to 3 things that you think you're going to do for us as a CRO agency that is going to help us there? And again, you'll be able to see from that, not necessarily, what they're giving you to make a call on it, but does it seem well thought out? Does it seem logical? Have they got case studies of where they've done that certain thing before? So you're verifying them by getting them to kind of recall some of that. And I think that's another important one. And I think finally, in terms of the other question I'll be asking, if you're a brand talking to an agency, is who will I actually be dealing with on a day-to-day basis? Because I think the problem is sometimes with agencies is that, we all say we're data-driven, we're strategy-led, blah, 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 blah. But do they have a strategist who is going to be solely working on that with you? Do they have a designer? Do they have a developer? Do they have a marketing strategist, email marketing person? Or is it one person doing all those things? Now, I'm not saying that those agencies out there that have people doing multiple roles can't do it. But if you're a brand of a certain size and you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, I'm paying this agency to specifically focus on strategy. We need this thing to work. You're going to make that call at whether that person who is account manager, project manager, and strategist can do all those things and handle another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 clients. So that's, I think, what you've got to assess and get a feel for of, Can they handle me? Can they handle me in the way that I want to be handled? And finally, can they help me get to that number, that metric that I need to get to? If I'm an e-commerce manager and I've been directed by my global e-commerce director, if I'm a global e-commerce director and it's come down from the CEO, can they help me get to that? Do you feel that confidence in them? Ask those questions to get you there.
I agree. Yeah. Account managers, project managers, strategies, all of them are roles are pretty important. It could be one, but it gets tricky as you grow as an agency. And of course, depending on the stage you are as a brand, it can get tricky to hire an agency like that too. So I completely agree. Based on your experience about something you said, do most brands that you speak with know their goals in such a clear way? Like, I'm here, point A, I want to get to point B by X time, or they don't?
Still very mixed. I would say, look, we mainly work with American brands, probably about 85, 90% American brands, and the rest are UK. I would say that for the larger brands that are either VC backed or who have had some form of investment, there is a clearer number there because, as you'd expect, if an investor or a VC is expecting a return, they know their number, they got to hit it. I think what happens a lot of the time, though, is that there is this like, we need to improve things. And this kind of becomes this mashup of the CEO saying, or the managing director, the owner can say, we need to grow the company. The paid acquisition person is saying, this means we need more new customers. The person looking after email marketing and retention marketing says, we need to get more money from the existing customers. And then head of commercial or the finance director saying, whatever we do, we need to make a 2x, 3x return in it. So you have, unfortunately, sometimes interplay between maybe 3 or 4 different roles. And that's why it can be very difficult in agency and brand relationships because there isn't an internal agreement. And I've been in meetings before where literally we have had full-blown arguments between board members, 6 people, literally going at each other because they can't agree on what the actual target is. And it's a real mess when that happens. So I would say on sort of balance, I would say American brands particularly tend to be a little bit more, okay, this is the number, and bigger brands particularly do. As you go down to, sort of the sort of sub 5 million, it is more of a case of, well, we need to improve stuff. But we always try and push as much as we can to get some sort of number because you need a target. You need something to aim for so that there's no question further down the line than that is easier said than done, unfortunately.
Yeah, we get a mix too. Some some people we work with, they just don't know what to expect. And that's a problem because we need to align expectations. We provide them with, we call them 90-day roadmaps. And the pillar, the main thing we have as a goal for the period is to achieve a super specific goal, not just, as you said, let's improve. We hold them accountable, we hold our team accountable, but if they don't know what to, we say, okay, just propose something, tell us what you think. And I believe this is more of a done with you between the, with from, the agency with the brand and not a done for you, Of course, we do things for the brand, but we need to team up with the brand because in the end, unlike other services, I'm a software developer by profession. I keep the glasses. I studied computer science, and I used to be a developer for many years. And my first company, actually in 2010, was a software factory, and we had a clear deliverable. We needed to deliver this app, website app, mobile app, whatever. In this case, they don't hire us, or you in this case, I believe, for deliverables. They hire us to achieve goals. My friend, sometimes, at least for us, it's a problem. So in this down with you, which things do you think it's a must for a brand? To be fair with the other side as well, brands need to request certain things from agencies, but what's the other way around? What things agencies should ask clients to have in mind when working with them?
Yeah, I mean, look, we actually in our contract we have an expectations charter within there to kind of get it out in the open. And what is based in the expectation charter is that number one, if you're going to work with us, we want you to listen to us, we want you to hear us, and we want you to objectively consider the recommendations we make. We tell them to expect they're going to hear things that they don't like the sound of in terms of recommendations, but we want them to be open to understanding them. We expect them to turn up to meetings, and we expect them to adhere to deadlines. And if that's not met, then unfortunately, we're not going to be able to work with you. And I think on the other side as well is a purely, being respectful to members of our team, which, any business should expect. Look, we work in a stressful environment. Sometimes things boil over, people get stressed out, but ultimately we should be afforded, courtesy and respect from people. And I think we get, I would say, I think that helps us a lot in securing clients because it shows them that we are not messing around. And look, we've fired clients in the past, absolutely, for poor behavior, in terms of that, that lack of respect to people. And I think, equally as well, in a situation where, ultimately deadlines have just not been met because, this as well as I do, Brian, as soon as that deadline get pushed, it's a house of cards. You've got to keep building it back up. And where do you find extra time from? Oh, this client hasn't committed their hours this month, so that's another 5 hours I've got to grab from there. So it's all these things that you unfortunately, and a lot of people don't speak out enough about this, is that ultimately this is a relationship we're talking about. And I think a lot of the time agencies are a little bit scared to say, look, actually, we expect these things of a brand rather than being all the other way around. And if we don't continue to talk like this, the whole mentality of some brands of this is a transaction, these are the website guys, they ain't ever going to go away. And I think we've got to be firm with people. I think in a way, if you can do that, and if you tell people what your expectations are of them as a brand, you will A, get more respect from the people that you are talking to, and B, I actually think you'll win more business.
Really agree. So I would love to spend the last few minutes talking about events because we are in the game to, to, earn money, to have our successes, etc. But to me, at least, it's really important, and I know to many people as well, to surround ourselves with amazing people and to meet them. But sometimes events could be really tricky. For me, I know they are. Absolutely. It's really tricky to know how to have a, let's say, successful event if that's a thing. And I know that you, correct me if I'm wrong, have run like 80 events or so, in-person events. So what what's some of the advice that you can give the audience and me, of course, about these events?
In terms of as an attendee in an event and getting the most from it.
It could be both. First, as an attendee.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main, I know we've talked about this before, Brian, like with being an attendee at an event, I am someone who used to hate going to networking, and it was imposter syndrome. It was not knowing what the hell to say apart from "Hello, my name is Adam. I make websites and stuff," which is really difficult to do. And I think what I often say is that when you're going to an event, the best way to get yourself feeling calmer for it is to do some pre-preparation of what you want from it. Now, for me, if let's say, for example, I knew there was going to be an event on whereby it was going to be, say, 20 or 30 brands in a room, I would say to myself, well, look, what I would really love the opportunity to do is for people just to know who I am and know what I do. So straight away, what I'm saying is, I'm seeing in terms of that event, can I get the listing of who's there? I'll just simply connect with them and say, hey, saw that you're going to Brian's event in Buenos Aires next week. Just thought I wanted to say, hi, I'm Adam. Great, first of all. Second thing is when you go to the event, I would be making sure that if there is a Q&A, I put my hand up. It doesn't need to be a particularly useful question. What you do need to do is I'm going to stand up and say, hi, thanks very much for answering my question. My name is Adam Pearce. I'm the co-founder of Blend Commerce, CRO agency based in the UK. And my question is, and it doesn't even matter if it is, what's your favorite type of ice cream? Ultimately, at that point, no one gives a shit about the question you're answering. They heard straight away the first thing you said, because that's what people are going to focus on. They're switched off for the rest of it. They're already LinkedIning you and finding out who you are. And I think the other thing as well is that making sure afterwards, again, with those events, take a little video, take a little picture, repost that, because again, people are at that event, know again that you're there. So those three little things, very simple little things, but if you're looking to get that exposure as an agency, in front of brands, good way to do it. I think the thing of running events is that what you've got to make sure is that, number one, have you got the right people in the room for the right type of content? And what I mean by that is that the reason that we did eCom Collab Club is because a lot of the events that were put on for brands and agencies and tech providers were very stuffy. It was a PowerPoint presentation about something boring. There was some wine, some crap food. Everyone gets drunk. Everyone goes home. Like, so what? It's completely not memorable. And the thing with the eCom Collab Club that I think that we do very well, if I may say so myself, sounds like I'm quite arrogant, but I think we do, is that what we make sure is that we make it very different to what the expectation is going to be. And we also make sure that there is value for brands, for agencies of a tech. So in the panels, if you come to an eCom Collab Club, you'll notice our line of questioning, there is questions that are targeted for answers to the agencies, for answers to the brands, for answers to the tech, and then some questions that are for all. So you just need to make sure that I think the whole thing is then tailored in, but I think also as well, go against the grain. Now, one of the things that I see a lot, particularly in the US, is there are, a lot of events where people are doing retreats, for example. That's all well and good, or there are dinners for brands. Now, I think the thing is, it's like the dinners, from my experience, work pretty well. But a lot of people are doing the same types of dinners with the same type of thing. Now, a little idea you might want to do if you are, for example, an agency in another part of the world, what you might want to do is say, look, we're going to do a dinner, but we're going to do it somewhere weird and wonderful and wacky. So, for example, we've done one where we were basically on the barbecue donut, a big floating boat with a barbecue in the middle, floating around London. Now, no one's ever been invited to something like that before. The brands wanted to come. It was something different. You had a really nice feeling there because people are really excited to do it. Great. A walking tour of the Brick Lane in London. We've done that one before again. Again, something a little bit different that people wouldn't expect. Particularly if you're in London or if you're in New York, the standard expectation is it's either going to be a steakhouse you're going to get taken to, or it's going to be some kind of like mid-level sort of chain restaurant where you're having the standard 2-course meal with people that are not really doing the same thing as you. Just make sure, again, just think about it for 5 more minutes and make it a little bit different. And that's what I'm saying. If anyone is wanting to run any events e-commerce wise, I'm more than always happy to kind of chew the fat on this and give ideas. I think you just gotta, there's this whole, it's a bit of a cliche, but when people zig, you zag, just do something different to what's been there. And it's really not hard because a lot of events are very vanilla, very plain, very boring.
Thank you for the tips. I heard you speaking about this in the past, and I loved all the ideas that you gave me. So I appreciate you doing it again here today. For me, I have never run an event, let's say. I attended not many, but yeah, almost I would say many, yes, in my life. But I didn't plan them properly ahead, and I didn't have a clear expectation. The same thing we were discussing for clients, at the
Mhm.
agency. I did the same thing. I was unprepared. I didn't go with a clear plan in mind and expectations. So what ended up happening was that I got frustrated because I felt like I was wasted my time and money. So I think it's it's great, everything you're saying about preparing the events. And even when you host it, having the right people in the event, doing something different to stand out and be memorable. And from the point of the attendee as well, I see many people that try to be different, even with what they dress, with what they wear, sorry, in the event. They wear crazy things just to be memorable, and do crazy stuff to be memorable right there in the event.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's just trying to break those barriers down. And like you say, people dress up crazy, or it's in a weird venue, or the theme is kind of slightly different, or there's a band playing when you walk into a networking or whatever it might be. All these things are brilliant because what they do is they break that ice and they relax people to the level like, oh, this doesn't need to be where I'm in a suit and tie and I'm really kind of, formal and hello and giving business cards out. That's brilliant because everyone goes and they talk as humans, and you get so much more from that rather than the standard, hi, I'm Adam from eCommerce. Here's my business card. Like, oh.
And even more these days, in which everything is a transaction, it's a Zoom call, 30 minutes typically, Zoom call to discuss whatever agenda you put together for that meeting, and even though there's, the small talk, etc., it's about the same thing. But if you are in real life, we are a remote team, but we used to have a lot of clients here in Argentina. Now we have all of them in the US, and I love that. But I do miss the warmth of the in-person relationship. And people open up. I had clients crying about personal stuff,
Mhm.
laughing, having fun. And the best things happen in non-business environments. I'm a true believer in that.
100%.
But over Zoom is super hard.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, and I think it definitely is difficult, Brian. And I had that challenge only because, like I say, I work a lot with American clients, and we do as a team. But I think what we always try and make sure that we do is that when we are on calls, we're very real. There's none of this kind of like BS. If things aren't going so well, we tell clients. If things are going well, we tell the clients. And I think that then allows you to build that trust. It does take longer, you're right, to get there. Um, and I think, it's just one of those things that, again, even with a lot of project management systems, that, even if you're kind of, when you're sending messages back to clients, you're not, being 100% formal all the time. You know, little things like that that just show that kind of human element. People want that, and we just have to work harder than other agencies, our competitors that are working, within the US and can, go for a coffee on, 56th Street, whatever it might be, with their client. But that's fine. We'll do it.
I wanted to thank you for being here. Uh, for everyone listening to this or watching this, you know that we typically, interview brand founders and we discuss what they do to acquire customers, to retain them, among many other stuff. In this case, I wanted something different. I wanted you to get the perspective from, an agency, telling you what we struggle with as an agency, giving you advice on how to deal with us. We are not easy either, right? And to give you advice to prepare for one of the biggest times of the years for many of the years, sorry, for many brands. So before you go, Adam, I do have a question that I told you offline. I ask the guests that come to the show every time, because it started because it was a selfish question at first, because I wanted to get ideas on what to read next. And I wanted to say, hey, I invite these awesome people on the show. What are they reading? I love to get out of the things I read usually. And then it became something, more for the audience. It's for myself as well. Why not? Right. But it's for the audience as well, because we put together a list of books mentioned on the show every single year. Do you have, by any chance, any book to share?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, I'm a massive fan of the author Mike Michalowicz. Some of you will probably know already from Profit First, which I highly recommend reading as well. The book that I really resonate with me from Mike was a book called The Pumpkin Plan, and it is all about intentional planning of how you then grow and scale your business. So if you're a brand, if you're an agency, if you're a tech provider, whatever it might be, have a read of it. Great book.
Will do. Adam, again, thanks for being on the show. I had a pleasure. It was a really fun conversation and really interesting and valuable for me, and I'm sure for the audience too.
Thanks so much, Brian. Absolute pleasure, mate. And thank you for having me with you.
Yeah, so for those who want to get in touch with you or with Blend Commerce, where can they go?
Yeah, best thing to do is I am very active on LinkedIn, Adam Pearce, Pearce, and also blendcommerce.com.
Amazing. So again, for everyone listening to this or watching, unless you are already there, head on over to the DTCinsider.com. And when you find the episode, you will find the show notes, including the links he just mentioned and the book, of course. Thank you, Adam.